Basic elements, a review. Here are some of the basic elements that you will encounter while critiquing. This is a summary of my experience. I will not cover absolutely everything. I count on you as having enough experience to use your own judgment. What I cover is what occurs over and over again. The very common errors or elements that people forget when they're painting, sculpting, photographing, any of the above. Composition. This is where you start. Look for basic shapes. Do they work well together? Do the shapes flow? Are there areas that it does not flow? How do you fix them? Ask, can certain shapes be bigger, smaller? Can you change the location of certain shapes so that there is better flow? This is particularly important to touch with beginners. Beginners forget that you don't just copy straight from a photo. Beginners need certain guidance and realization that they are the artist. They can put things wherever they want. They don't have to wait until they have the best photo to work from if they're working from photos. Here are more questions. Are there mostly soft, rounded shapes, but only one with jagged edges? Does it work? If it doesn't work, how can you change it? The goal is that most shapes lead us to a focal point. Is that happening? Is there a focal point? Review the ways you can create focal points. Is there something that leads the eye off the page? How can you change it so that it doesn't? Here's a big error. People tend to have elements like roads that go off the page into the corner. This is to be avoided. You can tell them to have the road come off the page away or canvas away from the corner. So just above the corner or just below the corner. Here's another big error. The focal point is near the edge of the canvas or paper. Review the golden mean and the best locations for a focal point. Each corner should be different. A different color, a different shape, different. Here's just a little section on focal points. There are many ways to create a focal point. You can create a contrast. For example, a small light area against a large dark area. A plain color against a textured color. Many darks in a large white space. This is just a few examples. You can create a focal point by isolating one element. For example, you have a herd of cows in the background, but one is alone in the foreground. In an abstract, you have a small dark area in a sea of white that is surrounded by more dark. That's a focal point. You can also create a focal point by having several elements pointing towards it. For example, a road leading to a specific house, that is the focal point. The rays of the sun leading to the sun itself, or to an element on the ground, or a row of trees leading to a clearing. All focal points should be part of the overall design or scene. Its color should be repeated in the rest of the painting, for example. So should the shape. No focal point. This is an option. Here the painting is often about the repetition of shapes, designs, or patterns. The overall effect is the goal. Our attention in this case should not linger anywhere. Now we're back to color and composition. Color and composition are interlinked. There should be one dominant color. For example, you have a landscape. The dominant color is usually green. At least 3/4 of the painting should include various shades of green, not the same green. The complementary color is red or orange, so there should be at least a little bit less than 1/4 of that color in there. Then there should be little bits of the third complementary color, and that would be like a purple. This is not set in stone. This is a suggestion that usually works very well. This is what we do intuitively most of the time. With every dominant color, there should be a complementary color to balance it. There should be a variety of kinds of that dominant color. For example, if you use a lime green, a muted green, a textured green, the variety reads like a green, but it is interesting because there's so much variety. Large, flat areas of color are generally to be avoided. However, this is not a rule. It does work sometimes, but it's really hard to achieve. Hue. This comes up every time. People get confused by that name, but hue is actually the name of the color, like red, yellow, blue. Hue and color are interchangeable words, but often this confuses beginners. You add black or white to a hue and you create values. The intensity of color is often described as high key or low key. High key is bright colors like yellow or red. Low key is blended colors like gray or dark values. Generally, bright colors come forward while dark color recedes. Values. Simply put, value is the light and darks in a painting or artwork, along with all the variations of in-between colors. In drawing, there's a gray scale of values that range from white to black and about 7 grays in between on average. The same applies to color work. There should be a range of the types of the same color. For example, in a landscape, there should be a variety of greens for the green fields rather than one green. Variety creates interest and harmony. Here's a word about abstraction. Whether the painting or artwork is abstract or realistic, the basic principles are the same. You need a good composition, good color combinations, good harmony. All the basic elements are the same. Critique the abstract painting using the same principles. Rhythm. Often this is viewed as a repetition of shapes and colors. The repetition of shapes and colors in a painting create a rhythm. For example, repeating small shapes in a pattern like Mondrian did created a rhythm. Rhythm is anything that is regular and consistent in a painting. That's kind of simply put, but that's the gist of it. Balance. This is the key word. You want to create an interesting composition that has balance. How you achieve this varies. It depends on if you're working realistically, abstractly, what colors you use, and your own personal style. You can create balance through the placement of shapes, through color, through texture, through horizontal and vertical placement of shapes, through value. You get the picture. A lot of factors depend on it. Here's your assignment. Look at the painting on the right. Analyze it in terms of values, hues, composition, and all the elements covered in this section. Keep in mind that you may not be able to use some of these sections. Like in a real critique, choose only 3 elements to use. So you have the option of values, hues, composition, and any of the elements mentioned earlier. But choose 3 of them. So do this now, and we'll see you in the next section.